Hello, Athens. This is Kaleidoscope, and this is Nan Michael, and I'm here again today without my co-host, Motormouth, Jane Penwell. Just joking, Jane. Jane is home recovering from eye surgery and is not even allowed to drive until Monday, so hurry back, Jane, because folks are stuck here with me stuttering and looking for words, etc., etc. On the way to the station today, I passed a car that looked kind of like a Jeep, and it was parked on the bricks in the middle of the roundabout, the traditional classical roundabout on Richland, but it was facing the wrong direction. Now, I don't know what that was about. Maybe the driver was inside trying to get centered and get their breathing down. I don't know what it was, but it raised my curiosity. Just as the other day my curiosity was raised when I drove past one of those bicycles with multiple seats, and there were 4 men riding it. That would have made a pretty video. Well, no fan mail this week, of course, because Jane hasn't been here. But I did get a request to mention an obituary, a person, and the name is Brandon Labonte. Brandon was on the board of directors of the Athens Photographic Project and hosted the Feed the Peaceful free meal program in Uptown Athens. He was a U.S. Navy veteran, attended Federal Hocking High School, graduated from ECOT, and belonged to many other groups in the Athens area. Brandon was a free spirit that enjoyed photography, writing, and sharing poetry, plus traveling. He will be greatly missed by his family and friends, and he is survived by a number of relatives, including a twin brother, Derek Labonte. So very sad. His picture, I guess, was in by the obituary, but I didn't get a copy of the picture. Sorry about that. There are, I believe, a couple of little shorts today. After my interview with Patricia Ercolino, who's just returned from 5 years in China. So we'll have an interview with her, and then we'll end up with a few clips from the Constitution Day panel discussion in Clippinger towards the end, and maybe just a little bit of, not spelunk, steampunk. So let's go and meet Patricia. Well, we're welcoming to the studio today guest Patricia Ercolino.
Very good, yes.
Returned from 5 years in China?
Yes, 5 years in Beijing.
And when did you return?
I returned to the United States January, the middle of January, but I did not come back to Athens until probably, say, March the 1st.
And why did you return to Athens?
I like to call Athens the hub of my life because I've been here, I went there, came back to Athens, went someplace else. I'm an OU grad. Actually, I have a few degrees from Ohio University. I did a double major when I was an undergrad, and I also have a master's from OU. So I'm a big
In what?
education. Education for the first two and international affairs for the master's.
Oh, that comes in handy.
It does.
Go
It
internationally.
fits, yeah, it fits my life.
All right. Did you live on May one time?
I stayed with some friends on May.
I think that was. I met Patricia in a writers group years ago, decades ago.
No. We don't say decades ago. It's been a while.
Okay.
It's been a little while. There's big change in the writers group, but to put in a plug for the writers group, it's a lot of fun. Meets every other Tuesday, and now the focus is more on poetry. But the first time that I was part of the group, it was a writers group, and people wrote whatever their genre happened to be.
And that's when were you in the group when we put out Pick and Please?
I was part of the group, but I think I left Athens before the final project was finished.
So you didn't get a submission in there, or did you?
Unfortunately, no. I was really sad about that because it was fun.
We would have put it in because we put everybody in.
And that's one of the nice things about the group. It's a very encouraging group. So any budding writer out there should check it out.
Not that we really are beating the bushes for members.
Wow.
Patricia's the most recent member of the group. We have one on the horizon that's moving. But before the show, we were talking about questions I should ask Patricia. And she said I could ask some questions about some personal questions.
If you like, yeah.
Okay, personal question. Give me a clue.
Would you define that? I mean, I spent the past 5 years in Beijing. I also lived in Wuhan. That's where I lived the first time I went to China.
And where?
Wuhan. It's the name of a city. It's right on what we call the Yangtze River, which divides the northern part of China from the southern part of China. And it's well, any city in China is large, but it is a fairly large city. It's known for communication. So in China, it's known. Outside of China, not as much, except it's one of the 3 furnaces of China. And when they say furnace, they mean furnace, as in hot. When I first arrived, I was administering tests. I basically was an educator all the times I was overseas. And when I was in Wuhan and we're administering this test, I literally could not stand in one place because I was sweating so profusely. I was making a puddle on the ground, and that's not an exaggeration. I was sweating. That's what you have to call it. It's not perspiration. It was sweat. Yeah. But it was a lot of fun. I did. The last thing that the organization that I went with told us to have fun. And so I took them up on that literally. And
really? What kind of organization is that? That sounds good. That sounds like public access.
It was good. It's now called, let me see, what is it called now? Education, I think it's called International Education Exchange. I'm sorry, they changed their name a couple of times since I went the first time I went to China. It's a great way to go to another country, though, is to go as an educator. I would much rather go to another country as an educator than as a student, because you have a little bit of status.
Oh.
Yeah.
And So how do you get to go as an educator? One, you have to have a degree
Right.
or training in
Right.
education.
For some things, I think it's possible depending upon how you go. You don't need to have an educational background, because if you know how to market yourself and you have a certain skill and you can show another country, and since I was in China, I'll make it more specific and hang on China. But if you can market it, you can find a job.
And if you can speak English, but you got to be able to speak Chinese too. How many dialects do they have over there?
I don't know. There are so many. I mean, there's 88 different provinces, and I think each province has its own dialect. But some of them are somewhat similar. I didn't realize when I was living in Wuhan that I was totally surrounded by the people from Wuhan who were speaking Wuhanese. But fortunately, it was fairly similar to the Putonghua, which is the national language. And whatever I understood in Putonghua, I understood in Wuhanese. So I'm much better at listening than speaking. We're not accustomed to tones. And,
that's true.
I would always pray. I said, "Oh, please, let the words that come out of my mouth be in the correct tone."
Or you have to say something dirty.
You would say something you don't want to say, and I did not want that experience.
Oh.
Yeah.
How long did you study before you went study Chinese?
I'm one of the ones that did not study before going. So I picked it up off the streets, from vendors, taxi drivers, friends. So I explain it this way. I learned enough Chinese to argue with the taxi drivers and to bargain with the vendors.
And to go find the toilet.
Yeah, oh, yes, definitely.
That was...
Yes.
When I took French, I wasn't taught how to ask for a toilet, and arrived in Calais, wandered into a library thinking that somehow I could communicate with them. And it worked.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. And a lot of people in China want to practice English. And if there's any Chinese people listening, watching this, please do not say to a native English speaker, "I want to be your friend. I want to practice my English." It's like, no, that's not wanting to be a friend. That's wanting me to be an English machine, and I do not base friendship
Oh, so you
upon
give them
that.
a little sermon.
That's not a sermon. You know what a definition of sermon is, don't you?
No.
Oh, well, the definition of a sermon, I'd have to be preaching, and that means I'd have to be telling you about Jesus. And I'd have to be saying how much Jesus loves you, and everybody else out there too. But let's talk about
And
China.
you don't do that in China.
That's a good question. It's illegal. They do not have missionaries in China. They do not have evangelists in China. To be in China, you have to have a legal visa, and you have to be working. There are different types of visas. There's a work visa, business visa, tourist visa, and I think that's it. I think those are the main three. And the business visa, I think, is the most expensive one, because it means you can be in China for 3, maybe maximum of 6 months, and then you must leave the country and come back. So you have the expense of going someplace else, and they're tightening down on that. Used to be, people would call it making a visa run. And you could go to Hong Kong for a day and return the same day, having your visa renewed. But now they want you to stay, I think it's a minimum of 24 hours, which means you have to have a hotel or something like that. And
did you mention an education visa?
a work visa. Education would be a work visa. That one typically is 1 year. Now the tourist visa can be maybe 3 months, or it can be, there's some that just recently, at least from the United States, you can get up to 2 years, which is really nice. But you also do need to leave the country and come back again.
And you were there on a work visa?
I was on a work visa,
and
yes.
The limit on that was?
A year.
A
Yeah.
year. So
Yeah.
how did you manage to be there for 5 years?
Well, each year you can have it renewed.
Oh,
It's 1
okay.
year work
And
and
one-
then renew, and then another year and then renew, and then another year and renew, yeah.
How about their dress? Is there anything unusual?
Oh, no,
No?
no. No, you see more Western clothes, very stylish. It depends upon where you are, the people. It would be similar to here. You do not see a lot of people wearing the typical Chinese, unless you happen to go to a nice Chinese restaurant, and then the waiters and waitresses, the maitre d' would be dressed more in the traditional Chinese.
And their television?
Oh, please, please. I
Don't have
whatever.
any experience of it?
No. Well, it's in Chinese, so you know how much TV am I going to watch? But movies that are made here in the United States, Hollywood movies, they're in China with subtitles before they're released here. Many. I don't know them
Really?
all. Yeah, they're very good. They're very good at getting things. They are great at having things. Internet. Once the internet entered into China, it had an explosion. The world was now accessible to the people, and I hope they learn the difference between the good and the bad. And I tell them, please, please, only copy the good things from my country. I want you to do the good, but unfortunately, some of the negative things, the divorce rate being one, that's higher than what it was in the past.
So they have lower divorce rates?
Yes. But it's higher than what it used to be, which is sad. I think that's one of the negative things that the United States introduced to China.
Well, right now, can they have more than one child?
Oh, it's so interesting to answer that type of a question. The law is one child, but there are some exceptions that are legal, such as if you're from one of the minorities, then you can have 2 children. That's allowed. If you pay enough money, you pay taxes, I think is what they call it. Another word they learned from our country. If you pay the penalty, then you can have more than one child. And if you live far enough out in the way out China, then yes, you will find people that have more than one child. And then you'll find the exceptions because, China is a huge country with a huge population. And having more than one child sometimes is not a hard thing to do.
And how about male versus female?
Oh, definitely. Male is more desirous than female.
But someday they're going to need some females
I know.
for wives.
Yeah, when I was in China for the first time and I heard about the one child policy, and I learned that everybody wants to have a son, I went, excuse me, what happens when they want to get married? Where are the wives going to come from if everybody has a boy child?
Maybe mail order brides from the United States.
Well, that is becoming more popular. You'll see international marriages. And I don't know how China is going to respond to them. How are they going to be defined? What is the definition of a Chinese person going to be? Because, it was definitely a homogeneous society. But now with the intermarriage, you can't say that. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see that impact on the country, and also the impact of wanting a son versus a daughter. It's like, be thankful. In fact, I'll tell you this story that happened while I was in China. A lot of the orphanages are run by organizations from the United States, and I think the majority of them are Christian organizations that are there in Beijing. And so because of church affiliation, and yes, there are churches, very difficult to have a Western foreign church in China, in Beijing. But there are a few that do exist, and they are wonderful. So at the church, in fact, 2 churches that I was involved in, both of them had somebody connected with an orphanage foster home. And so, I took people to go and visit. And one time, it was only one of my friends, Chinese friends, that went with me. And when we got on the bus to go back home, she called her mom and said thank you to her. I mean, it impacted her so much to realize that some of these babies had been given up just because they were female. Others were given up because they had physical deformities. And some of them needed a lot of medical attention. And so I want to applaud the people that have done this, because sometimes, in fact, for one child, it was $26,000 US for her medical care. And it was all donated. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's a big need there.
Well, that's very interesting. And now we turn to what you know that I don't know, and you got to bring up the subject.
Oh, I'm not sure what subject you want to go with, and you know a lot of things that I don't know. So what would you like to talk about?
You.
Okay.
They're tired of I talk every week.
Okay.
And we. How is it that they get the movies before we do?
I don't know that answer. I really don't. I just know that I heard about this movie in the United States, and then the next thing I saw it. It's on the street, so.
Oh, it says bootleg copies?
It doesn't say that. Of course it doesn't say that.
They put it in English here. This is a bootleg copy, and they can't read it.
No, they don't use that word, but there's so many things that you'd be surprised. Anything that you see in this country, living in Beijing, if you know the place to go, you can find it. And it's a very, very international city. People from all over the world are working in Beijing. You name a country, it's probably there.
Well, I guess they got a lot of our workers over there, or not our workers, but our work jobs overseas.
Well, that would be done by the Chinese. I said those jobs would be done by the Chinese.
Yeah.
But I'll give you an interesting fact. In fact,
right.
I think it's
I
interesting.
Knew we'd come up with it.
No, not yet. Well, I don't know. I happen to be left-handed. And I am always interested in seeing other lefties. And the person that was telling me this originally had been an ambassador to China for 14, 15 years, I think 14. And then became a pastor of the church that I went to, so that's how I got to know him. And he also is left-handed. And he said that they did a study and found that 50% of those that are in China in the labor force, 50% are in management. That there's something about lefties. I mean, that's a high percentage of left-handed people.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't know, I don't even know the percentage in the United States of what percentage of our population is left-handed.
Well, I kind of get the feeling that they're the creative.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Because left-handed people are the only ones in their right minds.
I didn't know she had that line.
I love it, but it's a cross dominance. So left-handed people are in their right mind, and the right side is the creative side.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
I think I'm probably duo-brained because I'm very, very analytical, which comes from the left-hand side.
Okay, so you're a mixture.
Yeah.
And in the poetry group, you said that you might try your hand at some poetry.
Yeah, when I first joined the group, I wanted to write an article to be published. But after being there however many times I have been, and I saw people really focus on poetry, I thought that maybe I should try some. I did do some when I was a part of the group the last time.
Oh,
Yeah, so it'd be nice to revisit what I did. But we'll see. I'm trying. I'm working on it. Okay, it's stirring up here. Hopefully, it will make it down to the paper.
That's great. And here, what's your next step? You say things are gelling for the future, but you haven't hammered them down yet.
Well, that's a big question. You want my real answer, the truthful one?
Oh, always.
Always, okay. So the always, because I want to forewarn you, I want to prepare you that it's a God answer. I have had it in my heart for a number of years to be a pastor. And I knew it was something that God wanted me to do. And while I was in China, my last year, I felt like God was speaking to me that now's the time to pursue that. Because all these other years, every time that I was praying about it, or, it's like, okay, God, what do you want me to do now? There was no, wait, not now. But while I was in China, I felt like God was saying, do this. And so when I was able to visit 2 summers ago, now that it's no longer, summer 2014, so this was summer 2013, I felt like God told me when I was at a church service to go speak to the guest speaker who happened to be the district superintendent about becoming a pastor. Now, I have to admit, I was naive. I was very naive. I thought talking to him and telling him that, I was in China, I would be returning several months in January, that soon after I returned in January, I would be in a pastorate position. And that didn't happen. I have learned that the statement, it takes a long time to happen, is true. And so I'm still in that long waiting season.
Have you had pastoral training?
Yes. I do have a Master of Divinity from Fuller Theological Seminary.
Oh, you left that out.
Well, we didn't talk about that. I also was a non-traditional...
We didn't talk about it because you didn't bring it up.
Well, we didn't talk about my education.
Yes, we did.
Well, yeah, but you know what? That was talking about Ohio University.
Yeah.
No, I did not get a Master of Divinity from Ohio University.
Okay, so all these little compartments.
Yeah,
okay.
Definitely. In fact, I have been a non-traditional student a number of times. I did go to Bible college after I graduated from OU. I have half of a, I'm going to tell you all my education, okay? I do have half of a master's in special education, and I went to Bible college, and since I was a non-traditional student, I'd already graduated, I had a blast. I got to take all the classes that I wanted to. And then after that, I went to seminary, and I have a Master of Divinity. So yes, I am highly educated, and I am well trained. And if I had the opportunity, I would do more. I love to study, but I hate taking tests.
Oh, I do too.
Yeah.
Oh, anxiety.
Yeah. I hate giving tests.
Oh, do you?
Yeah. I love doing any kind of paper, term paper, thesis, whatever, where I have the opportunity to espouse what I have taken in and then to put it down on paper. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess a lot of us writers do.
I never thought of it in those terms, but I guess so. I guess I do like to write.
I was just editing the last poetry group and listening to Felix talk about how it's important somehow to leave your mark, to say I was here, and I guess that's some former or retired professors turn to writing themselves into their poetry.
Yeah, it's interesting that there are a few people that come from the academia and are now in the poetry group. Yeah.
Are you living with, where do you live?
I've been very fortunate to have friends who have opened their homes to me. I want to have my own home, but I also need a source of income to make that happen. Or something that I have done periodically, and I think I've done it I've lived in 4 different states and 2 different countries. I didn't mention before that I was in China twice, but also I was in Taiwan. I was there for a year. But something that I have done in at least 3 of the states, I think maybe all 4, is to live in with people. And that's been a really great experience for me. I've had the opportunity under different circumstances. Sometimes it was just an exchange. I had a place to stay and did minimal things, cooking, which I like to do, and I've been told I'm good. So cooking and very light housekeeping.
I guess you heard Alex is looking for someone to watch her 5 cats while she's in China.
Yes, yes. And if she could bring it down to Athens, then I would say, wow, that would be a great experience. I get to stay in the home of somebody that's where I've been, and
well, and Nelsonville isn't that far away.
but with the cost of gas, yeah.
Maybe she'd lend you her motorcycle.
Oh, that would be fun. I did now. That's something we didn't talk about. Traffic, driving, transportation in China.
Okay.
Okay. You remember a long time ago they used to have a cartoon where the bus starts out like this big and then it expands as people got on, and then it got smaller like an accordion.
I missed that.
Yeah, well, I don't know where in my childhood I saw that, but I know where they got the idea from.
Where?
China. There is no such thing as a full bus in China. Even in Wuhan, which is not the size of Beijing. You just keep on. And literally they do have places where somebody will push to get people onto the bus. And you're like this. Now, a rule, if you're going to go visit China, maybe I'll have to make sure I tell this to Alex, as a female, you want to face the people sitting down, okay? You do not want to be facing towards the aisle. Obvious reason, okay? So.
Well, how about the people standing behind you?
They're not just standing behind you. They are in your space. I mean, there is no such thing as a private zone. And you literally can be like this, okay? Wow. That's the bus experience. Getting off can be a challenge, and that's why everybody wants to congregate around the entrance and the exit. I would be the one that would be telling the people in Chinese, my great Chinese, move, because they would all be here as close to the door as possible, and then there's another door. There's usually 3 doors on the buses. And then there'd be a group here, and then there'd be a space where nobody was standing because they wanted to be close to the door to get out. And I would be the one that would be telling them, move back, because these people want to get on the bus.
So what would your Chinese word be, move?
Oh, I don't remember. This is terrible. I knew when I said that to you, you were going to ask me. But I will teach you a phrase, which would be very helpful.
Okay.
It's dong bu dong, ting da dong bu dong, which means, you're hearing, do you understand what you hear? And many times my answer would be, wo dong, wo dong in the end, wo shuo mama hu hu. And the Chinese really liked it when I said mama hu hu, because that was one of the words I picked up in Wuhan, which they recognize. But that means that I can listen, I understand a little, but my speaking is mama hu hu, which means mezza mezza in Italian, half and half, not so good. Yeah.
Mama cuckoo?
Oh, you would have a lot of fun in China. No, I said mama hu hu.
Oh,
It's like
mama
hoo.
hoo hoo.
Yes,
Ah.
it means not good.
Oh.
Yeah, it means half and half.
Ah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, this has been fun. You're fun to talk to.
Aw.
And maybe you can come back someday.
Okay, I would like that, Nan. It's been fun too. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Gün dolandı dağı taşı, dinmiyor gözümün yaşı. Gelin eyle, tez günde ayırdı felek. Eyle suna, gelin eyle. Suna gelin, suna gelin, tez mektup yaz bana gelin. İzin alıp sana gelin. Gittiğin yer bana olaydı, yattığın yer han olaydı. Oy, oy, oy. Gün dolandı dağı taşı, dinmiyor gözümün yaşı. Gün dolandı dağı taşı, dinmiyor gözümün yaşı.
Made with maple.
A dry Irish stout.
Very traditional Victorian beer.
Wow.
Yep,
Right.
Can you get it? There you go.
I love stout.
You want a sample? It's a traditional Victorian, actually predates Victorian, way back. It's about 300 or 400-year-old type of beer. Very strong, as far as the alcohol content's not that high.
Oh, good.
But it's a small one anyway, so yeah. But it's a very, what we call a malty beer. Less of the bitter hops, more of the sweet malts in it. So if you're not a big bitter beer person, you might like it.
I don't like beer.
Okay, well, you can try.
My son-in-law likes it.
We've had one guy came back already 5 times for samples, so he apparently likes it.
My daughter drank too. She doesn't like beer either. So I'm like, you just had 2 of them.
It's a very good. Yeah, a lot of people are learning new beers these days. We've been taught in America that beer is yellow. See, there you go. We've been taught that beer is yellow and tastes like lager, because that's what Budweiser and Miller and Coors and they all make the same. But beer has many, many styles, and that's what Professor Horatio Hops teaches, is how many different styles. There are over 20,000 styles of beer and beer recipes in the world. So, Horatio, for his apple cider, he was very particular about what his cider would taste like.
John Adams.
John Adams, yes. But Sam Adams got a lot of credit, but he wasn't that big of a brewer. So, you know what's really cool about it? It's a wind and watch, but it actually has a built-in pendulum, and as I walk, it winds itself. As you swing it back and forth, it winds itself. So it's a fun one.
Because we haven't invented batteries yet.
Exactly.
In 1946, humanity witnessed the first image of Earth from space. Since then, those who have seen Earth from orbit describe what is called the overview effect. This phenomenon triggers an immediate understanding that the Earth is a precious and fragile ball of life hanging in the void, and we are all here together. There are no borders in space, and the conflicts that divide us seem less important. We realize the need to create a peaceful and unified planet. My name's Cameron Ashkar. Humanity is on the verge of a new space age. Our expedition will create a documentary to showcase amazing technologies, key figures, and space culture, music, food, and fashion that make up this new space generation. We will visit spaceports, test labs, training facilities, universities, and high schools to find out cutting-edge technology in the faces that will become the space explorers of tomorrow. Each country that we visit will interview its people to find out what space means to them, and give them the opportunity to find out about new space developments happening in their own backyard.
What if I told you that the Kepler spacecraft has discovered close to 1,000 Earth-like planets?
And space holds the key to solving resource scarcity here on Earth.
We can harness the power of the sun with satellites to provide limitless energy to people in need.
In this documentary, we will investigate these developments and more, and inspire a new generation of explorers. We can all feel the overview effect. So buckle your seatbelts, because we're going to a place where borders can't separate us, gravity can't hold us back, and unimaginable discoveries await.
Well, I said I wasn't going to wave goodbye anymore because the situation in the world was so serious, but I don't know whether Jane will agree to let that go or not. But now we're going to a little panel discussion in Cleppinger, and I'll say adieu right now until next week, Athens. This is Nan Michael signing off.
That we should all be equal, regardless of our where we come from, regardless of our race, regardless of how much change we have jingling in our pocket. All of our interests in a democracy are entitled to equal weight, and that is not the democracy we have now. I do think that there is at least a wide degree of consensus on this ideal of equality now, even though there wasn't at the fact.
But we've been talking about the value of the individual. We live in a democratic but capitalistic system. There could also be democracy and socialism, I suppose. I have recently retired, and I don't feel that I am as much value now because I'm not productive. And it seems as if much of our country, and perhaps the people that are working on these restrictions, believe that the more productive I am in terms of change in my pocket, the more valuable I am. Would someone comment on that sense of individual value?
Dramatic to say, but I will say that I for a couple of years worked at a conservative think tank, and one of the things I noticed while I was there was how consistently people there didn't refer to citizens but referred to taxpayers. that was their word for citizen was tax. Where you and I might say citizen, they said taxpayer.
But from the beginning of our current Constitution, we have this problem where a senator in California represents 18 million people, in Ohio about 6 million people, and Wyoming about 250,000 people. And one person, one vote is like a joke. When I think about being politically equal, the Senate in some ways has more power than the House. I don't know if anybody wants to talk about that. The other issue I was going to bring up is we talked, I forget which one of you said, well, if you're not allowed to vote, prisoners, felons, and I can't understand why they're not allowed to vote. If they're in prison, fine, they still should be allowed to vote. If they've served their time, certainly they should be allowed to vote. But both of those issues.
But there's no way of justifying the districts that we have now. I was also part of the campaign to pass issue 2 a few years ago, which would have created an independent redistricting commission and established these 4 criteria that commission should follow. We got creamed at the polls, right? I think to put it in a nutshell, we got creamed. Now, if I could explain this issue to every Ohio voter in I just had 2 minutes, there's no question that the vast majority would support it. But most voters just don't understand redistricting. And it's easy to confuse them. And if people are confused, they vote no. And the other side, let me give them credit, was very effective in confusing voters into voting no.